glasses anymore to make them work.
Too, just because it's. Did you hear, Mark, that Zach was going to be late?
No.
So we could go ahead and start when you're ready.
Okay.
All
All right.
It is on Zoom.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Sue, the couple changes that were made is we took out 10,000 from the Opticom for the ambulance and fire changeover of the lights. The state actually fixed that for us, which was very nice of them. Okay, so that's the only difference you should see, I think, in yours, in the budget. For changes. And you saw the Opticom, the state fixed it for us. It was just
Yes.
a wire, I guess.
Good.
So we left it
Did
in
Alex
there.
report that or Tommy?
I think Kevin called and they said that the former fire chief said, don't worry about it. So I was like, okay. Either way, it's fixed.
It's 12:30. I don't know if you want to get started. Zach said he was running late, so I will leave that up to you.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, just a couple opening comments that I have. I think we all realize that the budgetary process takes up a considerable amount of time. Keeping in mind the process started in July and ends at the vote at town meeting in March. We have worked diligently with the department heads in the creation and review of their budgets. The budget message that was sent was there are wants, needs, and must-haves of what a department cannot live without. And this is all based on verbal conversations with them and the justifications that they made to us. I will say with meeting with each department in our lengthy conversations, there were changes made during those meetings to lower the budget in some areas. I firmly believe that we have to have a balanced budget that the majority of the Plymouth taxpayers can support. This means meeting expectations and creating sustainability for the town. Some of the things that you'll see in the budget are there were salaries adjustments made based on market value, as well as retaining good employees that we have that have tenure with the town. 3% increase for the employees on a pay scale, which was brought to us by the Board of Selectmen. A 1.5% increase for fire department employees, which is in part of the union negotiated contract. There is a additional firefighter proposed in this budget for the fire department. We did see increased in health insurance cost of 13.8%. But with our overall health insurance line, which has been separated out as recommended by Health Trust as well as the Budget Committee last year, you'll see that that number is down. And the reason that number is down is we added an additional plan, which was a more cost-effective plan for the employees in the town. So there was a considerable savings, as well as being able to offer a $500 FSA card to those individuals that switched over. One other thing we're doing this year is we'll be adding an additional plan, which is a cost-effective plan, which drives the cost down even lower. That way, we will have a suite of plans that are available for those that really need a well-rounded health care plan to those that need very little health care which is a cost savings to us. The other thing that is involved in that is different plan types. We had younger employees coming on that didn't have families, whether they have a 2-person or 1-person plan, which dropped from a family plan down to that. We did see a 10% increase in our property casualty and our workers' compensation insurances, and of course, the overall inflation for services and equipment. So with that said, I'm not sure how you want us to start in the presentation, or do you have questions immediate?
I just have some kind of overarching questions.
Sure.
If I could. Is that all right, Mr. Chairman?
It's okay with me, Mr. Halloran.
All right. Insurance, just the market, not worrying about that. Was the pool number high too, or was that our individual score?
Pool number capped at 25%. There were rates that were up in the 30%. The low was 7% increase.
Okay.
So we were kind of on the lower end in
Yeah.
the pool that we have with,
Right. All the schools.
Right.
All right.
we were at 13.8.
Okay. All right. Firefighters, and I'm sure that you did some of this work. Would this be the third edition in the last 3 years, one each of the last 3 years?
Yes.
That is correct. And
Okay.
what that, and they were proposing 2 this year.
Yeah.
We asked them to drop that back to 1. The ultimate goal of adding the firefighter is to have 3 on each shift.
Okay.
And what that does, it allows us to be able to fulfill our commitment to our contracted ambulance towns. And as we discussed last year, you'll notice that the ambulance budget is much different than the fire department budget this year because it reflects the true cost of operating an ambulance service.
That's great.
We estimate that we will collect back 53% of those costs, roughly $400,000 to $600,000
Right.
in contract cost.
Right.
The letters went out to those contracted towns last week. We haven't heard back from them, but there were substantial increases to those contract towns for the service that we provide. And the reason for those substantial increases is that I don't believe, and doesn't believe, it's fair that the taxpayer in the town of Plymouth is funding the contracted town's ambulance service.
Right, and the other towns need to look at it as that, we caught a break for a number of years, and now they really know what their costs are.
And this is the cost of doing business, so that
Right.
truly reflects
Right.
what it costs to run an ambulance service for the town of Plymouth. We own 47% of that cost. We know that based on call volume in
Right.
dollars per call, and 53% is billed out to the contracted towns.
Right. In not quite the same way, but similar to how the high school does business in terms of Plymouth owning roughly 25% of the high school and the other sending schools owe their share. So it's a fair assessment. Right. Are we saving now in fire overtime with the hiring of these new positions? Did you and Tommy work with those numbers to say what are our actual is there any savings?
There is minor savings with regards to the overtime, but there is some.
Okay, great. Police and dispatch. Last year we added 1 extra person on the police department, 1 extra dispatch person. Particularly the dispatch, I thought, was the most important position we hired last year because of our commitment to a 24-hour dispatch. Are things working? We haven't met with the chiefs yet. Are things working out in dispatch?
Things are working well. We're fully staffed in police officers, and we're fully staffed in the dispatch center,
Great.
which has reduced the amount of overtime that's being spent in the dispatch center with adding that additional person.
You did a lot of work with highway last year in terms of coordination and how's the year gone? I mean, I know how the project's gone very well from my perspective in terms of flow and everything else. But how did the department function and
So we basically hired 5 new staff members
Yep.
last November, December. It was a learning curve. It was their first winter plowing. It was their first summer on summer maintenance. I will say all of them are still with us, very happy in their positions. I think our foreman, Steve St. Pierre, makes a big difference being out in the street with them and doing the work. They've done a considerable amount of work this summer based on the storm that we received last December with the flooding. So my expectation for them was to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Working on catch basins, working on ditching, working on patching roads, and making sure the system can handle what rain we get. There was a considerable amount of work done over the summer to address those issues. I think they replaced somewhere in the range of 21 culverts over the summer. They rebuilt a few catch basins, and they ditched the entire length of Texas Hill Road. So those were areas that we recognized and identified through the storm that we had last December that we currently are working with FEMA on recouping some of the funds for that. But the staff is working out great. I can't say we've had any major problems or disruptions at all.
Right. Well, I know just the feedback that I've gotten around town, people are very pleased with the effort of the road crew and the town, this building, selectmen, and the improvements to the roads are incredible and they're really appreciated. And not only the major roads that you see, but the New Hebron roads of the world, and you know, those sorts of roads that many people travel on. The work was impressive, and thank you.
I think latching on to that a little bit is the some of the side streets and the walkways that have been done are great. I mean, I'm driving by and I'm looking at what's that? It's paved, and I think being able to do those little jobs in between are going to be able to pull things together even more. So, I mean, from my perspective, visually, it looks great, and it makes me feel like we're really moving forward.
It adds longevity to those roads that were in such disrepair. I can tell you that next year, that is also included in the budget to pave 5 additional roads, as well as the engineering for the 2,300-foot stretch on New Hebron Road from where the new pavement ended to where the new pavement started again, having that engineered for drainage, as well as engineering from Pleasant Street down to Highland Street on Russell Street, which needs to be boxed out and redone and drainage put in as well. Yeah. Those purchase orders were signed last night, so hopefully that work will take place after July of next year. So there is a plan for additional sidewalks to be paved and redone, because I think it is one of the most important things that we have neglected over the years, is looking at the infrastructure and making sure the streets, the roads, the sidewalks are passable, whether it's walkable or vehicular traffic.
Does that include like Main Street sidewalks that exist now?
Main Street sidewalks from where the construction was done is included in the construction bid. So any place a sidewalk was disrupted, that will be redone next spring.
Okay.
Priorities of this budget that we should be aware of, that are really important to the Board of Selectmen and to the administration.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at the budget, you'll see quite a difference between what the department heads requested and what I'm recommending as an operating budget, and I think that's kind of a place to start, is looking at those numbers.
Right.
Is that last year the budget that was approved in 23-24 was $15,032,997. And you can look at my budget that I'm looking to put in place this year, is $13,140,203. So quite a difference of, you see the budget is down overall by $92,794. And those include all the things that we spoke about when we opened up with the 3% raises for employees, some salary market adjustments based on retention, as well as the 1.5% for the fire department under union contract, and a new firefighter that's proposed in the fire department budget for next year as well.
Insurance increase as well.
And the insurance increase as well.
Right.
I will mention probably a couple of the areas that probably show the most increase is recycling, and that really comes out of the cost of hauling. Is trucking has become so much more expensive. There's some significant increases in the recycling budget with regards to that. And then the town clerk's budget. We have 3 elections this year. So that increases the cost based on what Josie in the past and Aaron in this budget and Amy have proposed based on the 3 elections versus the 2.
Right.
To call anything out above and beyond that, Ann, any?
I know the only other adjustments that were really made throughout the budget by you, Scott, were the nonprofits. The nonprofits really asked for some significant increases, and the recommendation from Scott is to keep it the same as the current year.
Right.
I guess my feeling on the nonprofits, and I've talked with many of them about their request and what they've done. I attend their monthly meetings. I attend as many meetings as I can with regards to them, is they have to understand that we come first, the town comes first, and that what we're already giving them in tax exemption and nonprofit exemptions from their taxes has a huge role in what we're able to offer for those contributions back to those nonprofits. So in my conversations with them, I told them that, obviously they requested what they wish to request, but in my eyes, we were level funding that from the work that Mike and Mark did last year of really sitting down, taking a close look at them, and making the appropriate cuts that we did last year.
I think the other thing that we want to do is we really want to take a look at their numbers and make sure they're not, we want to make sure that serving, the numbers are for Plymouth people.
Sure.
And we're not servicing people outside of, and that when they talk about the various X number of hits that they've had, if those are duplicate, like the same person over and over again, and just try to decipher, what exactly is going on. And if their efforts have been consistently ongoing through the year, or if there's a kind of a downtime, and get a little more accurate on the dollar per person, and make sure that we're going to support what our people here in town, but we're not going to support other people. Sorry about that.
And the other thing that I have been looking at the last 3 years, I guess, doing this, is that the impact on people that really need help. I look at the transportation folks. Those are people that have no other way to get to where they need to go. And I think in the spirit of this town, and I know this town, those are services everyone wants to support. Then you look at the National Red Cross, who has the ability to fundraise nationwide. That has to take a step back versus us trying to fund services for folks here in Plymouth that need a ride someplace. So it's myopic in some ways that I'm looking so narrowly at it, but at the same time, as Scott said, it's above and beyond what the community's already given in terms of tax exemption. So
The request that we received from them this year totaled $73,605. The appropriation that I have asked for under my budget is $50,970. So really taking a close look at who they are, what they do, and the services they provide to the residents of Plymouth.
right.
And I think that on top of that, I mean, the way things have gone the last year have been pretty incredible, in my opinion, as having lived here and seen the way things have been, 10 years ago on up through. And we're turning a corner, but we're not around the corner. We're in the corner. And I think last year we explained to the different entities that were looking, the nonprofits, that we're asking everybody to tighten their belts. We can't ask, we can't ask the fire department, we can't ask other departments to tighten their belt and not do the same for you. And, honestly, that we're not obligated to anything. We just do it because it does help the community, It's another outreach element that we have. But we're in this thing together, and we've all got to bite the bullet. And better times will be probably coming, I think, the way things are going. But they've got to realize that that's the environment they're in, and we're not going to ask them to do something we're not already asking our people to do.
Yeah, and the priorities were to try and stabilize the tax rate, and fix the infrastructure, and plan for the future. And I thought we did well as a group, moving through year one. So I know the town can see progress. People comment on it every day. So I think we're all heading in the right direction. And kudos to the folks who are here every day making it happen. That I just had some overarching questions. I just wanted to get a sense of big picture,
Yeah.
where everybody wanted to go, and you can fiddle around with some of these line items, but
Right.
get a sense of what the big picture was.
I think we're all pretty much on the same page on this end of things, and I think that's great, because there's no, I don't know, differences of opinion. The minor things, line items you're talking about, that's one thing, but in terms of what we're trying to accomplish is what we have to do to turn things around in the town. I think, as they said, they're turning, but we're not around the corner yet. We just have to maintain what we're doing, and I think the CIP, I really enjoy being on that committee, because you get to see how you can plan and plot out over the next 6 years what you're going to do with your money in line with what you need. And I think it helps everybody, the departments as well. We're not going to get to that point and not have the money to spend on the truck or whatever equipment there is. So I'm pretty pleased with everything.
We're pretty steady with our revenues, and what we had budgeted last year, we believe that we're going to be able to increase that a little bit when we go to set the tax rate. And when I say little, I'm talking 20,000. I'm not talking,
Right.
okay. And then next year, we believe that we're going to be right in the same range as we are this year. There could be potentially additional funding from the ambulance due to the billing that we're changing. So just be aware that is what we're doing with revenues.
Scott, if you had a chance to talk with Kyla, superintendent of schools, because there have been a number of bills that have sent one-time money off to property poor communities. Is Plymouth going to be in the mix from some of those things? I don't follow it anymore, so just read the
Unfortunately,
stories. I don't know how that can be, but that's for another day.
But there is
Okay.
still a lot of grant money out there if we can target it, if they'll allow us to apply for it, depending on what our usage.
Right, right.
There's still all kinds of ARPA money.
I mean, what I try to do is to meet with Pam at the superintendent's office.
Yes,
The
yeah,
assistant superintendent, because she does, as you know, and you recommended her for grant writing, is Joseph and I meet with her on a quarterly basis and talk to her about what grants possibly we could work on together.
Right.
Or has she been able to identify something from her level of expertise that the town should apply for? So we're back and forth with her,
Right.
Frequently.
Yep.
If she identifies something that might be available.
Yeah, great. No, I was hoping there were a couple of bills that went through late, and they were aid that was above and beyond what had been distributed already, and they didn't identify any communities other than it's going toward property poor towns. And a lot of it is positioning for these two lawsuits that the state doesn't look very good in. I was just wondering if you had heard if we're on any of those lists at all.
Have not.
Okay.
And I mean, I check in with Shaheen's office, Hassan's office, Custer's office to see what's out there, because I know that the town of Lincoln got some money towards a new police facility. So just to put that in their mind, and they always respond right away, and provide additional information. So I think we're looking at that level to see if there are grant opportunities out there, but as of right now, there hasn't been anything identified.
Do you have questions for us, or do you want us to look in any specific direction and further probe? I know that you guys are really on top of things, so this may be a moot question, but is there any place you want us to spend a little bit of time?
I can't identify anything because I think we've done a thorough job, although while saying that, I think it's very important for the budget committee to meet with the department heads, because there may have been an oversight or something that I didn't identify and didn't identify that you may see that sticks out to you that says, maybe that's not right. But I really encourage to have those conversations, and I would love to attend those meetings you have with them to hear those responses and hear the questions that you may bring to their attention, because I think it's important. In my conversations with them is that we all have to work together on this budget. And I truly believe in a balanced budget. And if you don't want to work with us in that process, in that means, we're going to go back and we're going to do $0 balanced budgeting. You are going to start your budget from $0. But if you're willing to work with us, answer the questions, provide the justifications, and we fully understand what the need for the community is, then we can work with that. And that's really the process we took with each department. Not every department was happy with us through the conversations, and at the end result, I think we all came to a mutual understanding that other than the additional items that I had, besides that, they all worked with us within their budget process, and the cuts were made together, collaboratively, as we went through that process.
And that hadn't been the case. I mean, when Mark and I, a couple of years ago, started, we went around to ask everybody what's up, what do you think is up, what do you need, what not. We weren't, as Mark would say, not counting pencils. We wanted to see what was the atmosphere, and there were a bunch of silos, basically. Every department was trying to, take care of themselves, and rightfully so, but, it led to non-communication, and, there might have been some numbers that were, a little higher than they should have been, but I think that atmosphere has changed considerably, and I know I talk with different department heads, just hey, how's it going, and everybody seems pretty upbeat, and I expect that these meetings will be advantageous, because they're going to know that we're not looking at trying to cut anything. I've told some that we want to give you everything that you really need, just may not be able to give it to you this year. So it's a win-win situation, and I think that's starting to turn from my experience anyway, the last 3 or 4 years.
And I think, this process truly started back in April in our department head meetings, and really trying to coach them, mentor them, and move them towards a balanced budget. And part of that was showing them through the change in the health insurance plans that there are effective ways to reduce cost in the municipal setting. And like I said before, that reduced our costs considerably, because we moved, how many, 80%?
Yeah.
At least 80% to the more cost-effective plan, which is a huge savings for the town. And this year, we'll move them to an additional savings, which is a site of service plan. The younger employees are going to want this. It's going to save them money that they're paying out of their paycheck, and it's going to save the town a considerable amount of money month over month for a more cost-effective plan. My hope is we move out of that 80%, we move 40% to this additional cost-effective plan. So we will continuously see the cost of health insurance for the town going down, even though we saw a substantial increase from Health Trust of the 13.8%, but you don't identify that in this budget.
Right.
Because of what we've done on plan design.
Yep. Well, that's great. That's great.
The other major change that you're going to see, as Scott mentioned earlier, if you'd like to go to the ambulance and fire budgets, in years past, there have been multiple lines in which employees have been paid overtime throughout those two departments, where we could not identify where the overtime was coming from or how much overtime they actually were spending. This year, through Scott's efforts, we have gotten that department to actually break out overtime in one line. So we'll be able to see that, not necessarily this year will you see the change, but in future years to come, you're gonna know how much overtime is spent in those departments. And again, the budgets went up significantly for ambulance because we're proving that's how much it cost, and went down significantly in fire.
Right, we knew that was a thing we were gonna do
Yeah.
this year, where we readjusted, reallocated so that we actually could show
And
that.
It took, the
But that was a lot of
Jen
effort.
did a great job breaking that out. It was difficult, it wasn't easy. But as you look online, as you look at their spreadsheets, you'll see the differences in the lines from one to another.
Yeah, you, I mean, you can see fire department go down 1.4 million, and then you can see ambulance go up 1.3, so.
And I don't know, Zach, if you heard me say before, but when we look at those lines and having a lot of conversations on how we develop those, but with regards to the ambulance line, Plymouth owns 47% of that cost. So 53% we are now invoicing out to the contracted towns, which is a substantial increase over what they've seen in the past. But we should see an additional $400,000 to $600,000 worth of revenue coming back to the town based on those contracted costs. And our price, even though it went up considerably, it still matches the market for ambulance transports. So for example, Stewart's or Best Care or any of those ambulance transports, we're at the same price that they're billing. There's a really that reason they're billing. We're a business. It's a business for us. It's not a nonprofit organization providing a service to a town where the town of Plymouth is paying $260,000 of those ambulance contracts for those other towns based on billing that doesn't take place. So this will be billed in 4 quarters. In the 4th quarter, we will look at what we received in revenue from that town's billing. That will be deducted from their 4th quarter bill.
Perfect.
Plymouth, we know we're paying 47%, but we're also gonna be collecting the billing that we get for the Plymouth, town of Plymouth patients that were transported.
That's great. That's great. And it's right there to be seen, nice and transparent. It's right there
Yeah,
to be seen.
much more transparent than it
Yeah.
was previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a long time coming.
And I mean, it's our first year doing it, so it will be
Absolutely.
a learning curve, and hopefully everything works out as projected, which I believe it will. Because we're really the only game in town.
Yeah.
And it's a business. We need to cover the cost of what we're providing for services to those contracted towns.
Well, we even asked the questions the last couple of years of, should we outsource this? And there were no takers. There was, even if you wanted it, you couldn't. It's just, the market's not there. So,
You know, and there's the cost of doing business. Like I said, there's an additional firefighter in the budget this year. They asked for 2. We asked them to reduce that down to 1
Yep.
and maybe go for 1 next year so that we can have 3 permanent people on each shift to adhere to our obligation in doing a contracted ambulance service.
Is the college considered Plymouth residents? Okay.
They're billed. They're invoiced just like
College,
any other
so the
transport.
college has a contract as well?
No. So if we transport somebody from the university, they get a bill.
Okay,
They get billed just like any other resident in the town of Plymouth.
okay.
And if their bills aren't paid within a certain time period, we actually bill the college if they aren't paid.
Okay.
Certain ones are, so we try to get that at 100% coverage, and that's considered in our revenues.
The thing with billing is that, let's just say for conversation pieces, it's $1,000 to transport somebody. By the time Medicaid, Medicomp, and the commercial carriers reprice that bill, it's down around $400. So you're not recouping your full cost associated with that transport. That's why it was essential that we went with the process we went with to collect the funds that are due back to the Plymouth, because that's where we were losing money.
And it was kind of hidden in a way that it showed income of X amount of dollars, but it didn't really consider what comes out of that, and it was a losing proposition. So,
I figure last year's ambulance budget was just over $154,000.
Right. It's like, well, that's just not true.
And then you go a town, 80,000, one town, and they're like, why am I paying almost half this budget?
Sure.
They don't,
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and legitimate question.
yeah.
How did you choose what amount of the fire chief and deputy chief to allocate to ambulance versus fire?
They delegated that.
72%.
And so they figured that based on call volume or on?
It's all on call volume.
Call volume, okay.
And that's
sense.
all in their spreadsheet, Zach, in their spreadsheet online.
Oh, okay, on
You'll
their
have-
tab?
Yes, you'll be able to see, they actually have ambulance, fire, they have it broken out more. And it may say right in their description how they allocate that.
When you redid these budgets, so I see the overall ambulance and fire ends up with a $150,000 savings, which, because of all the shuffling, it's impossible to just identify where that came from. Well, roughly, where'd all that savings come from?
On the, when you look at, let me just get there.
I would say part of that savings is gonna come from moving their health insurance out.
That's exactly where it comes from, is moving the health insurance out of the operating budget into a health insurance
So
line.
it's really, it's
There's a separate health insurance line.
correct,
We do.
yeah.
Okay. And so we
Health
don't,
insurance line is at the beginning of the budget. It's under,
Say, personnel, I believe.
personnel administration, so insurance, health, and dental's all,
Everything got moved out of all the budgets and put there.
okay.
And that is a total of about $170,000 less than last year.
this is in a different,
Got 1.1 million total, but it's
What page are you on?
effectively new.
Page you
I'm
on?
on page 2.
Right, page
That's line
I don't
number
have page
108.
I have page 4.
Oh.
That's why I was looking
I
for it
need a
and I
new
couldn't
one.
find it.
Yeah,
I
I
have
need,
two.
I'll print out for everybody if
Yeah.
you want. I can go do that. Sorry.
But you can see last year, with health insurance, it was 1.3 million. And you'll notice this year, the number is 1.138 million.
even with the increase.
Yes,
That is correct.
about
Quite a trick.
$177,000 savings right now.
Well, this will make it a lot easier for us to track the health insurance and dental insurance costs going
Exactly.
forward.
So you don't have to try to pick it out if each department
And then we can
budget. You'll
explain to the
have
town
one
that,
that will show those increases year over year or decreases depending on plan design.
well, if you add staff, like, you'll always have that increase. You can say, well, the budget includes, 2 new staff members, like, of course, this is gonna go up. That kind
And
of
I
thing.
think when we budget for health insurance, for example, for the new firefighter, if that's passed, we're budgeting for a 2-person plan.
Just
So we're in the
case, yeah.
middle between the one and the family.
Yeah. So it could be a little worse, it could be a little better.
It could.
We won't know until we know who we hire.
Exactly.
Exactly. And they go through the whole year. You go through the whole year and see what the bottom line is. Yeah.
I mean, we're
Always.
fortunate right now, like I said, our police department is full staff, our dispatch is full staff, and our fire department is full staff.
It's amazing.
Highway
With
as
the
well?
labor market the way it is, it's tough.
Well, I mean, a year ago, you mentioned this at the beginning, we weren't sure how we were gonna get our roads plowed going into fall last year. It was very scary, our staffing levels, so that's really encouraging.
So,
And I mean, we have some young people, but that's good.
That is good.
Honestly, you're gonna drive a plow truck in the middle of the night, I like that it's a young person.
since we're up on computers all night,
I know.
It might as well do something useful,
Already
right?
in that,
I don't want to be driving a plow truck at 4 a.m. I am not going to be safe.
I was just wondering, Scott, you mentioned everybody's fully staffed. So what criteria do the departments use to needing more people, such as like the fire department that wanted 2 this year? I mean,
Say that again, Mike, I'm sorry.
it sounds as if I know talking to the chiefs of fire and police and whatnot, they talk about for the number of calls, et cetera, we need X number of people. And they've been, last year I know they asked for 4 full-time EMT/firefighters. How do you determine when you need another one? Is this to compensate the part-time stuff that they, help that they'd lost? Or?
So we've lost a lot of volunteers.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do have some per diem employees,
Yeah.
So in lieu of going with 2 additional firefighters this year, we have 4 shifts at the fire department.
Okay,
So we really want 3 on each shift
Right,
to be
right.
able to meet our commitment.
yeah,
If we add the additional one this year,
Right.
we're at 3 of the 4 that will have the 3 on each shift.
okay,
So what we'll do over the next year is fill that with per diem people
okay,
when they're available,
Okay.
because the volunteer market is
Right.
really not there.
yeah, the numbers show
I
that.
mean, we don't get a number of fire calls. You may get some fire alarms and different miscellaneous type fire calls, but for actual fires,
Yeah.
we, knock on wood, have been very lucky. The majority of our responses are ambulance.
Yeah,
But if they ask for an additional one next year, then they will be full complement, 4 shifts,
Right.
3 people each shift.
right. Okay, thanks.
I noticed it when you were consolidating insurances, you didn't consolidate life insurance.
No,
Why?
that is not really covered by HIPAA. Life insurance is, it's a single employee that we're covering, not a family, not a 2-person or a single plan.
So they're term life policies for the individual who's in the
Correct.
position. So it's not identifiable to anyone.
And it's the same thing with short-term disability.
Right.
Yep. That's why we didn't change those.
Gotcha.
Short-term disabilities actually works to the town's benefit.
It does, we get money back.
Right. So the selectmen and the town manager aren't put in a position where you feel bad for someone and there's no money coming in and everything else. That's short money to make sure that people can survive.
Absolutely, short-term and long-term
Right.
disability.
Right.
As you look down through the individual departments, is there any one that really stands out that you, Sue, I know you're new at this, you're kind of taking it all in.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate that.
And I think, at least Michael and I and Sue will come along, the last 2 years have been really learning opportunities for us.
Right.
And last year, we made some real recommendations. The first year, we had no clue what was going on.
Right.
But this year, it's really about talking with the department heads about the progress that's been made and how everyone is feeling with the existing budget. As I wandered through this, there weren't any surprises that we didn't talk about last year,
Right.
quite frankly. When you look at what got accomplished, and, leaving last year, Scott said, we got to straighten this fire ambulance thing out. I knew there were staffing issues at the fire station, and we had a big year lined up for highway. This is a nice continuity. It's the same story working itself out, and that's what we all want to see with the capital improvements program too. That there aren't surprises. So when we sit down here, how'd the year go? Went well. Everything. You get a couple of surprises, but everything fit into place, and then the tax rate will follow along with that. So, and as we begin to see growth in the bottom line in terms of value of the community, that should even help us further in terms of stabilizing the infrastructure. So.
This is your copy. Can I write on this or no?
You keep that one, and I'll print out another one I could.
Well, thanks so much. I know it's a lot of hard work, and I know there are ongoing discussions that start at department head meetings, and that's the nature of this business, is you're constantly evaluating on a monthly basis how things are going, and,
So something additional that we're gonna talk to the department heads about, and hopefully we'll start in January for the last 6 months of this budget, is I really wanna get down and understand better the cash flow. So we're gonna request of each department head to outline what their cash flow is in January, February, March, April, May, and June. That way, we'll have a better idea to see how those dollars were spent throughout the year. So it's something we're gonna do as a trial basis from January to June. And then next year's budget, it will be laid right out on what the cash flow management is on that. And out of that, what we see in these last 6 months, develop a policy on cash flow management.
have we had to borrow any in lieu of taxes? Have we, no?
Not since I've been
Good
here.
job. That's no easy trick either,
great.
because of the highs and the lows. And I know that you have 2 school districts that call on you, and the county. Does the county still take it all at once?
Yes.
Right before Christmas.
And we've managed to grow the fund balance.
Fund balance is a little difficult right now. We've attempted in the past to grow it. However, we've got a very large project on Main Street that the town's percentage originally was going to be, I believe, 20%. We're now up to 49%. That's how much that project has
Cost us.
gone, from 3.5 to 5.6.
Yeah.
So we're really shifting a lot of the money that we have extra within the budgets to that project.
So we don't have to.
Right,
borrow.
right, but you're not proposing that this year will shrink the fund balance, or are you?
The fund balance that actually, we should be increasing that fund balance at the end of '24.
Yeah. Which
20
we've done every year for,
Right, but at the end of
5 years now.
'23, we got hit hard because we actually took and put the 2.5 million, which is the town's portion of this project, into a different account and took it out of fund balance. So it hit us hard this year. So we really don't have much to put against, if anything, against the tax rate that we're going into
yeah.
this, in November.
You know, and still I was in a meeting this morning on the downtown construction project, and it's gonna cost us some additional money. You'll notice in the CIP, we've put another $250,000 in there. I'll know better on November 8th of what those true costs are going to be based on soil contamination, the handling of that soil contamination, and getting rid of any soil that we've had to handle during that time. But I won't know that until the exact reports come back from the soil testing company. But we have put $250,000 in there.
Right.
I hope it doesn't cost that, but we don't know right now.
Well, in the past, there have been so many gas stations along Route 3. That was the major tourist road, and, you know, folks that have been around a while can tell you the names of all the gas stations along South Main Street and Main Street. It should come as no surprise to anybody that we have contaminated soil along Main
The
Street.
only place we have contaminated soil, and they've done test pits, North Main Street, South Main Street, is in front of the dry cleaners.
That's what I
In
thought.
front of the dry cleaner?
Yeah, and it's a very.
Those are very identifiable chemicals.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and that's what we're waiting for, is the identifiable
Yes.
piece of that, because the initial review said that those soils can be taken out and be used again under asphalt. We don't know that for sure yet. So November 8th, we'll know better on exactly what we can do with those soils.
And the rest of South Main Street came out?
Fine.
Moving right along,
They did,
Leave it at fine?
moving right along.
they did core drilling all the
Oh,
way down.
we're
Dry
doing this
cleaners it
once.
is.
That was a 12-inch hole, right?
Yeah.
It's okay,
I'm
that's,
sure they went
No,
deeper
we're not
than
looking
that.
for trouble.
No.
But
We've done our due diligence.
that's all. I mean, when it's all said and done, we did what we could do, and
And it met the New Hampshire Department of
everyone's
Environmental
happy, and that's the
Services
end of the digging.
guidelines. So,
okay.
and both Plymouth Village Water and Sewer and the town use the same company, John Turner Group, for
Yes.
soil testing.
very good.
We both used the same consultant,
Mm-hmm.
the same type of test, so there was no deliberate indifference between what they did and what we did in
Sure.
the areas that we tested.
Yep.
Which, that's been a project to manage in itself.
Yes.
Well, I think,
I've never managed a construction project before, and it was a learning curve.
Yes, it is.
Did a good
I
job.
think initially it was brought up, I believe, by Neil in terms of the soils, and I think I caught myself going,
I know.
but I'm glad that it came up, and I'm glad we addressed it, because now there's nobody that can come back and say, well, you know, you didn't check this, you didn't check that, and I've got some issues here. So I think in the long run, it's probably money well spent for transparency and knowing what you got under you.
Are there, not to get off line, but it does have a budget impact. Are there still monitoring wells along the PEMI?
There are. There are.
They're checking,
And the Pemi River Advisory Council, PERLAC,
yeah,
meets on those and has those results.
okay,
And they do additional testing as well.
right.
So if you want to just grab your, I know we're going to have a CIP meeting starting at 2:30, but I just wanted to go through and make sure that as we look down through, Zach, I'm going to hand you this. The yellow line is this year. We have made changes as, what time did I make that change? Yeah, like early this afternoon. So basically, if you look at the bottom line, is what we were trying to get our bottom line to be as consistent as we could across the board. And when you talk to your departments that are coming in this afternoon, the three largest, I think.
Are we on the capital improvement program?
Yes, yep,
Oh,
CIP,
capital, okay.
CIP, it should say 24 to 30.
Are there changes in the one that you gave me the other day from this one? There are, okay, then, never mind.
I mean, he could take that and at least start. The one change was the Opticom.
Yep.
So the Department of Fire is asking for an additional change, but they'll bring these up. Under fire, the breathing air trailer. If you can find that on your list at the beginning. Should be, and we'll make these changes, should be the breathing air compressor.
I've got breathing air trailer,
Yes, that should be breathing air compressor.
okay.
And they're actually, it's a $75,000 replacement cost, and that won't be until 2033. And then his next note from Tom is we can scrap the rescue tool line valued at $24,000. We'll keep the rescue tool line valued at 60, but change the date to 2032.
If you look at this number, doesn't match these numbers on this page.
So, no, it's not, because some things are up here. I mean, they're,
I was just looking
The
at
total.
total capital here.
but total capital here will not match what's on here, because some of the things are up here. Yep, and some things are in. So if you're trying to reconcile your bottom line of your capital, just keep in mind that some departments put things in their regular budget, some things are in capital outlay, and some things are in transfer to capital reserve, some things are in debt service. So don't get, they're all over the place. We can guarantee that they're all in there, it's just how we have to put them
Different ways
within the budget, yeah. So it does reconcile, we've looked at that a few times.
So, and you were saying that the rescue tools item was taken out?
Sorry. The rescue, that says scrap the rescue tool line valued at 2,400.
24,000.
24,000.
24,000, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then they're gonna keep the rescue tool line valued at 60, so they must have two lines in there or something?
do, there's one up, we just saw it, it was just right here.
Scrapped.
Okay, they're gonna keep the $60,000 one and get rid of the $24,000
Yeah,
one.
one says 2006 rescue tools, one says 2022 rescue tools.
And that will be changed to 2032 will be the year.
That's what it changed to.
There it is, right there.
It's not a rescue tool.
Okay, so see where it says the 2022 rescue tools, this one right above it. And that's the one they're keeping, that's the one they're scrapping.
In both cases, they're
2460,
out
do you
here,
see it?
so.
I didn't know.
Okay.
I'm glad that they're.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I mean,
that
they're
both
looking,
And then
yep,
there
they're
should be
looking.
one
It's out far enough
go
that it
up.
doesn't really matter.
for station.
So again, what Scott and I looked at with the departments when we talked to them was really the bottom line. And
Yeah, I don't
we've
know.
had to make
I didn't see one.
some additional adjustments. You're gonna see that we,
There's 60,000 right there.
it's very hard to
There's
get
nothing in there, so this is rescue tools.
dollar for dollar.
It's- yeah,
There's
it's
going to be
2006
adjustments, there's
rescue
inflation,
tools.
there's,
Yeah.
but that's,
Goes to 20.
that was our attempt.
As long as it's accounted for. I mean, we can get to the numbers when we
Right.
get serious about purchasing it. but
Right.
it-
And the
What
year
we're
is
trying to
still
avoid is,
2030.
oh, by the way, I need this next year.
Yeah.
If it's not on the list, it's like Santa. It's not on the list, it's not coming.
And what we did with all of these big ticket items for vehicles is we had each department head come in with current quotes on what those vehicles are and lease payments based on those vehicles as of market October 2023.
Now, when they get these quotes, where do they get the quotes from?
So if it's a police cruiser, it's for a state bid.
Okay, so they, like the construction equipment, they go through the state contract as well. They can go there as well.
That is correct.
Okay.
Fire trucks are a totally different
Yeah, no, I was mostly equipment.
bag of worms there.
We're putting 5,000 to
But
their
yeah, so
capital
like for
reserve.
an F-450, with, whether it's a 450 or
They
a
have
Dodge
one now.
Power Ram or whatever, state bid is $150,000 for this setup. That's what we do. Same with a six-wheel dump,
Here.
same process.
So they have 10,000,
The
each year
fire
they've been
apparatus
putting
is really
around,
looking
anywhere from
around
10 to
three
5,000 in
major,
a year. for
three
future
major
building
manufacturers, Pierce, E1,
So
And-
really, we should maybe.
Rosenberg. Those are the three major manufacturers that stand behind their
New
equipment
build-
for
yeah,
20
okay.
25 years. So that's where we seek bids from,
You're not buying a new building for $10,000.
Let me just see what,
or quotes from, I should say.
I mean, there is a few departments that you're not seeing. Is there anything there in this, we're gonna meet again at 2:30, but in the CIP, like, you're not asking to see recycling. They don't have anything, I don't believe.
No.
Is
And we talked about that when we met last time. I went back to Jim and asked him about the skid steer. I provided the answer on that, and also about the facility. And he said the facility was good for 6 to 8 years out. And then there was some follow-up with Lisa
Park and Rec?
on the lease of the 15-passenger van that I provided as well.
So speaking of facilities like fire and police, I mean, I know every year that comes up. How do you deal with
So where we are right now is that the committee has appropriated money with regards to doing a space needs assessment. So tomorrow, the fire department will have their interviews and their space need assessment. And on Friday, the police department will have their space needs and interview assessment. Based on those assessments, it's going to give us what the approximate square footage of the building will need to be, as well as what is the acreage needed to put that building on to include parking, et cetera. So until we get to that point, although we have put money into the CIP for the studies and the environmental surveys and all of those things done if we find a piece of property, that is in the capital improvement plan this year.
Okay.
Do we know how much it's gonna cost to build a building? Not right now.
You know it's
I
gonna be
can
more
say
than
it's gonna be
$2,000.
between, it's gonna be between 8 million and 20 million. And it could be less expensive if we decide to go with 2 separate facilities at $7 million apiece. I mean, there's a lot of homework still to be done based on the space needs assessment and what that building's going to look like. The perfect example is the town of Lincoln. I've talked with Karina, who's the town manager up there, as well as Chad Morris, the police chief, who led the effort on their new police department. When they looked at combining the police and fire, it was a $24 million building. So they chose to say, okay, the fire department is still called part paid, keep the fire department where they are, but we need a new police department because they're in the basement of the town hall. So they were able to buy a piece of property and build a building for $7 million. So there's a lot of decisions to be made as we move forward based on what we find out about space needs and what property is available.
We still could put, even if we went separate buildings, we can still put them on the same piece of property.
Absolutely.
Depends on if you can find a piece of property big enough and
That's right. Yeah.
You know,
but it's still an
proper
option.
location.
It's an option.
it is an option. I think you can, to some extent, you can get away with a slightly less centralized police station in terms of property location. You know, you could tuck it like ours currently on the very corner of the town of Plymouth.
Sure.
Because they're patrolling in their cars, you know, they're
Yeah.
mobile in terms of being a force. It's convenient to have it central, but it's not required, where
Right.
fire station, if it's not somewhat central to where the calls are happening, they've got to respond. It's
Yep.
a little more problematic.
Exactly. Yeah. I saw where Tilton has put its police station, off tucked behind the mall over there with most of the town on the other side. So obviously it can be done,
Yeah.
and you're right.
I just think there's a lot of information that needs to come to us first before we
Right.
try to dig into that further.
Oh, absolutely. It's a long way out, and we haven't really talked to the public about getting ready for a sizable commitment for the next 2 generations. So,
But hopefully we'll have some information back. We've asked them for the reports back 2 weeks after they finish on Friday, the 27th, and we'll be able to hold another meeting and have another conversation.
would be a nice opportunity to have that information for this upcoming town meeting. So at the beginning or at the end, you can say, this is what we're looking at, and here's some of the needs that we may need. So you'll watch us over the next year or so begin to look at this
Absolutely.
and get
It's-
involved.
It's about transparency and keeping people
Absolutely.
informed. It's the only
Absolutely.
way you're gonna get buy-in if you provide them the documentation and information that's required.
And plenty of time to get ready for it.
That's it right there.
Yeah. You can't surprise the town with a $24 million expense.
Not gonna go well.
You won't surprise them.
Not after a
They
revamp. It's
will
not gonna go
surprise
well.
you.
So do we need a meeting next week at 2 o'clock for the, at 12:30 for the budget committee on the 30th? Or do you want to start seeing departments then, or?
Let's just get right to the
I'd like to get right
departments.
to it. If something comes up between that time, we can maybe come and get questions answered
Yeah.
and asked and whatnot. But, no, I think we go, and as we meet with each one of them, if we have any questions, we're gonna direct those right away
Yep.
and try to have it all wrapped up by then, so.
So
What I'll
probably-
do is, once I get your dates that you're meeting with the department heads, I will make sure that I can adjust my schedule to be there.
I'm actually doing a little homework here. I'm putting a spreadsheet together, so we'll have that set up, pretty quickly.
Perfect.
We'll have it posted so
Yeah.
that, anybody that wanted to hear
Yeah,
individual questions can do
absolutely.
that. Yeah, they could.
I mean, you notice this year, we are broadcasting each one of our meetings, so that there's no questions that the meetings were held behind closed doors. It's open, it's transparency.
And it's good because you can always go back, the way it's set up, you can go back to a meeting, a month ago. Geez, did I miss something? Go back to the meeting and see that, okay, yeah, that was discussed, or it wasn't discussed, but it's just,
My hope is that people will watch the meetings, they will ask questions, give us a call,
Yeah.
send us an email.
I know my wife and I,
Happy to
after
answer.
dinner, we sit down and we watch those meetings. We do. I would have called myself a nerd years ago, but no, now it's like, it's important stuff, so.
It's interesting, you say that, is, we had coffee with a cop this morning, right, across the street. And last night I was at the Plymouth State University Student Government Association meeting. And I invited them to come to Coffee with a Cop. Come on down, have a conversation. There's no agenda, there's no speech. It's open conversation. Nate and Alex spent probably a half hour with a group that came down,
That's great.
30, to have that conversation with them.
That's great.
And it's a great group, and they asked some really good questions, and invited them to come to the next Student Government Association meeting.
That's great.
So it's something that we've never embraced or taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And, when you show up, they almost think the governor is there. They're so happy to have people attend. So it's getting that group involved also.
That's great.
It could be the next town planner, or the next town manager, or the next select board member.
Well, I'll tell you, the vice speaker, his goal is to be president of the United States. He
We've
walked
had-
in, he's a really nice young man. He walked in last night with a suit and tie, very distinguished, has a presence, and showed up this morning at Coffee with a Cop. I mean,
That's great.
a good bunch of students.
I've seen a lot of kids come through. When Ray Burton had his intern program, there were a lot of kids from, students from Plymouth State that were interns with Ray, ended up being state legislators. Recognized some of the names as I went down there to testify on behalf of bills and things, some old acquaintances. So, and it's a help for the town of Plymouth,
Yeah.
a real help.
So we have some time.
You have some time. I forgot who was gonna be first. I think it's Highway is first.
You want to call Joe, see if he can come up now?
I can. We don't have Matt, though.
Oh, right.
Yes, we can't go early.
Yep. So, and we're posted for 2:30.
Let me see if I can
Okay.
find him, see if he's around.
But we're posted for 2:30, Sue.
Yeah. I
Oh,
would-
that's right. It's upstairs.
So just, we'll just go get a coffee with the is he still over there? Can I go get a free coffee now? Or are they gone? The cop.
They're gone. There was
Oh,
just
I
an
can't go
hour.
get free coffee, sorry.
No.
So, Mike, do you want to adjourn this meeting? And then we'll
I
come
like
back,
you guys.
and then we'll come back at 2:30?
I move we adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?